We need to have a little talk, although there are forces that don't want us to have this talk. Russian media has been banned. Russian bloggers are constantly under the threat of being deleted. Our sports teams from football to badminton have been banned. Russians in the Western world who have nothing to do with the military operation have been attacked and fired. Our symbols of victory over Nazism in Europe are made illegal. This didn't start in 2022. No, this has been ongoing for a very, very long time. And over the years, there have been numerous attempts to conquer us, enslave us, eradicate us. But time and time again, like a phoenix, we rise from the ashes and rebuild. Now, is it just hatred or is it jealousy that we, a nation with 148 million people and over 100 different nationalities and languages, live in the biggest country in the world with a myriad of natural resources to our disposal? We can be proud of our writers, musicians, poets, inventors, and of our ability to literally feed the entire world. Remember the World Cup in 2018? Do you remember how Western news media tried to instill fear into you to prevent you from visiting us? Remember how those who came discovered a new world of warmth, love, and celebration? Do you? I do. And ask yourself, why don't your leaders want you to understand that regular people, just like you, live here? Why do they demonize our leadership time and time again? Isn't it our right to have who we want leading us? Ask yourself another question. Why is it that cowards, alcoholics, and traitors like Mikhail Gorbachev and Boris Yeltsin, under who Russia was broke, poor, and falling apart, are loved, and those who rebuild Russia are hated? I know that regular thinking people in the West are kind, loving, and want the same thing for their children as we do for ours. But your elites want to destroy us as a nation. And nothing makes it clearer than the post that I will read to you. A post that is still up on LinkedIn. A professional social media. A post from a highly educated person named Guido Gianasso, a Swiss-Italian honorary consul to Romania in Geneva. The real problem with Russia is not Putin, it is Russia. Since the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Western observers have kept focusing on Putin. He is considered the core of the problem, a despot who brainwashes his people and runs his country with terror. While this is true, it's absolutely not true. It's false. The real problem is somewhere else. Russia has been bullying, threatening, and invading its neighbors for centuries. Finland, the Baltic states, Poland, Romania, Georgia, Afghanistan have been its victims long before Putin. Yeah, just don't mention all of the nations that your countries actually destroyed over the course of the years and how many people in Africa you've enslaved, etc., etc. Yeah, don't remember that. That is inconvenient. Even today, Putin is very popular among Russians. Recent independent polls suggest that over 70% of Russians in Russia support Putin and the invasion of Ukraine. Source Levada Center. Incredibly, this is also the case for 78% of Russians living in the Baltic states. How is it possible? Russians living in Estonia are EU citizens free from Putin's brainwashing, yet the large majority support him. Don't get me wrong, there are Russians who oppose Putin. Some of them are bravely challenging him in the streets of Moscow. Many are well-educated, cosmopolitan, upper-middle-class Russian citizens who vote with their feet and leave the country. But they are a minority. The sad reality is that most Russians are with Putin and support his invasion of Ukraine. So where's the real problem here? The problem lies in Russian culture, a combination of high power distant collectivism and nationalism. The high power distance suggests that Russia rejects the idea of democratic system and have a preference for a strong leader running the country with an iron fist. Putin today, Stalin before him. Russian leaders who tried to make the country more democratic, like Gorbachev and Yeltsin, are unpopular in Russia. Yeah, they are unpopular here, because they literally destroyed our country. They tore people apart. They caused it. It's not about voting and democracy. This was about us being enslaved by your corporations and your elites. That's why we don't like them. Because they caused so much carnage in this country. So much during the 90s that we are still trying to get out of that particular situation. We are still trying to rebuild from the 90s. And Russians who lived through the 90s, the majority of them, are more afraid of the 90s coming back than of a war. I'm confident in that. That's why we don't like Gorbachev or Yeltsin. Not because of democracy, but because of what they did. They caused civil wars. They caused people to be destitute and poor. They did that. That was the legacy of their leader, of them being in power. And that's why they're not liked here, but they're loved in the West. I wonder why. But let's continue. Nationalism, solidarity, and cultural identity shared between Russians is complex and usually summarized through metaphors. Sometimes Russians revert to simply leaving this fact unexplained, quoting the famous poet Fyodor Tuchov, who said, "You cannot understand Russia with your mind, you can only believe in it." Others refer to the idea and symbolism of a shared Russian soul, dusha. This explains the soul as a combination of one's heart, mind, and culture, and the uniting point making Russians as cohesive and proud people, narod, constantly engaged in an epic battle to defend its soul against foreign enemies. If you read Putin's speeches, you will find this theme again and again. Understanding the cultural roots of today's tragic events is important. We must realize that getting rid of Putin will not solve the problem. The only way to build peace and stability in Europe is working on a long-term strategy to contain Russia. This can only be done with a combination of stiff economic sanctions, rapid buildup of a strong European defense system, independence from Russian gas, and integration of Ukraine and Moldova in the European Union. No honorary council, that is not the way of solving the problem. If you don't want the bear to come out of the cave, don't poke the bear. Read this article again and replace the word Russians with Jews, Africans, Chinese, or Mexicans, for example. Would this kind of racism be tolerated in your country? What this Guido Gianasso forgot to include, or who, are Russians in eastern Ukraine, who have been murdered for 8 years by their own government in Kiev. Do they not have a choice? If you think Russia is just out there to kill Ukrainians left and right, then look up what's going on in the city of Kherson, which is completely under the control of the Russian army. No shelling, no fighting. People are going about their daily business. A tiny minority is even protesting the Russian army there, because the city, the leadership of that city, made a decision to protect the Russians and Ukrainians living there. And they didn't allow the nationalists to use their own citizens as human shields, like they did in Mariupol. Now, all of this could have been avoided if your Western elites did not support an illegal coup d'etat of a democratically elected president of Ukraine in 2014. Someone who half of the Ukrainian population voted for. And over the years, the government of Ukraine has banned their own media networks, murdered Ukrainian journalists, politicians, the elderly, men, women, and children for not supporting the illegal coup in 2014. They even denied Crimea the basic human right to fresh water, and your elites ignored it entirely. Because who cares, right? They're Russian. Finally, today, May 9th, is a day of victory when we celebrate our grandfathers and grandmothers who laid down their lives to protect us from extinction during the Great Patriotic War against the Nazi war machine. It is horrible that once again, a mere 77 years after the end of the bloodiest war, we have to answer the call to protect ourselves. Мы помним, мы знаем, мы россияне, украинцы, белорусы, казахи, киргизы, узбеки, армяне, азербайджанцы, таджики, грузины, молдаване, монголы и другие национальности, которые воевали за справедливость и выживание, мы победители. С праздником всех! Ура!